Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to attend the second press conference of the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. Today we have invited Deputy Foreign Minister Mr. Ma Zhaoxu. He will brief us on pursuing peace and development and building a community with a shared future for humanity. And he will later on take your questions. First of all, I will give the floor to Mr. Ma Zhaoxu.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, friends from the media. I'm delighted to attend today's press conference and give a briefing on China's commitment to peaceful development and the building of a community with a shared future for humanity. The victory of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression represents a historic turning point where the Chinese nation emerged from the profound crisis in modern times and marched toward great rejuvenation. It had a major, far-reaching impact on the great cause of people across the world to defeat fascism and pursue peace. After the founding of the new China, China has pursued an independent foreign policy of peace. It has proposed the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, advocated a multipolar world, and democracy in international relations, making important contribution to world peace and development. Entering the new era, changes unseen in a century are accelerating across the globe, coupled with multiple and interlinked risks. Peace deficit, development deficit, security deficit, and governance deficit keep worsening. Once again, humanity has come to a critical crossroads. President Xi Jinping, with his broad strategic insight, and a deep commitment to the world and of the Chinese people, with extraordinary political wisdom and deep commitment to the world as the leader of a major country and a major party, has grasped the prevailing trends and laws governing the evolution of human society, ingeniously put forth the vision of building a community with a shared future for humanity. This has answered the question of where humanity should be heading, the question raised by the world, by history, and by our times. It has charted the course for world peace and development at a historical inflection point and pulled extensive consensus for the common progress of humanity. President Xi Jinping points out that all countries are in a community with their future linked. Countries are not riding separately in some 190 small boats, but are all in a giant ship on which our shared destiny hinges. Small boats may not survive a storm, but a giant ship is strong enough to brave the storm. Building a community with a shared future for humanity means that the future of each and every nation and country is interlocked. So we should stick together through thick and thin and endeavor to build this planet of ours into a big and harmonious family, and turn the aspiration of people of all countries for a better life into reality. In 2013, at the Moscow Institute of International Relations, President Xi Jinping first proposed that humanity live in the same global village and have increasingly emerged as a community with a shared future in which everyone's interests are closely intertwined. In 2015, at the general debate of the 70th session of the UN General Assembly, President Xi Jinping outlined a 5-point proposal of this community with a shared future. In 2017, at the UN office at Geneva, President Xi Jinping further proposed 5 goals for the world. In December 2023, at the Central Conference on the Work Relating to Foreign Affairs, President Xi Jinping delivered an important address establishing the pillars of building a community with a shared future for humanity as a scientific system. The goal is to build an open, inclusive, clean, beautiful world of lasting peace, universal security, and shared prosperity. The pathway is promoting global governance that features extensive consultation and joint contribution for shared benefit. The guiding principle is to apply the common values of humanity. The basic underpinning lies in building a new type of international relations. The strategic guidance comes from the implementation of the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. And the platform for action is high-quality Belt and Road cooperation. We hope countries of the world can work together to meet challenges and achieve prosperity for all. This vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind has inherited and carried forward the diplomatic philosophy, strategic thinking, and fine traditions formed since the founding of the new China, and has been continuously enriched and developed in the practice of major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics. The idea is based on a reasonable design for state-to-state relations. It reflects the general consensus and common expectations of the international community and demonstrates China's sense of duty as a responsible major country. It introduces a new approach for international relations, provides new ideas for global governance, and draws a new blueprint for a better world. It rises above the exclusive rules of bloc politics, above the notion of might makes right, and the so-called universal values defined by a handful of Western countries. It has created the greatest synergy for building a better world. Thanks to joint efforts, the vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind has been expanded from China's initiative into international consensus. It has turned from a good aspiration to rich practices. It has evolved from a proposed concept to a scientific system. It has achieved a historic leapfrog from bilateral to multilateral and from regional to global initiative, from development to security, and from cooperation to governance. It has achieved comprehensive and groundbreaking outcomes. It is now widely recognized in the international community that the vision has transcended self-interest and protectionism. It confronts the hegemonic thinking of certain countries that seek supremacy. It presents China's vision of the cause of human development. Therefore, it is of great significance to promote solidarity and cooperation among all countries and create a better future for humanity. Many international figures have said that this vision represents the idea and desire of the international community and brings peace, development, and hope to the world. UN Secretary General Guterres stated that the purpose that we practice multilateralism is to build a community for humanity. This vision, this important vision, has been included in UNGA resolutions and declarations at CEO Summit for 8 consecutive years. It has been written in BRICS leaders' statements for 8 times, and its core tenet has been included in the UN Pact for the Future. It has become a landmark international public good. President Xi has pointed out that dreams and wishes may be far, but they can be fulfilled with dedicated pursuit. Building a community with a shared future for humanity is a goal that requires efforts by generations. China is ready to work with all countries to be guided by this vision, draw wisdom from history, show a sense of responsibility of our times, work in solidarity, and work relentlessly toward the lofty goal of building a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you.
Thank you for introduction. Now we will have the Q&A session. We welcome questions from the media. Please also notify us your media affiliation before raising your question. The press conference will provide simultaneous interpretation. However, if question is in English, it will be translated consecutively. Now please raise your hand if you want to raise your question.
China Daily. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, President Xi Jinping has personally carried out head of state diplomacy with remarkable achievements, and we understand that in the upcoming major events there will be a series of bilateral and multilateral meetings. How do you perceive the strategic guiding role of head of state diplomacy for building a community with a shared future for humanity? Head of state diplomacy is the highest form of China's diplomacy. In major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics, head of state diplomacy plays a decisive role. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, President Xi Jinping has personally planned and executed head of state diplomacy with many remarkable achievements and highlights. He has paid 55 foreign visits, covering 72 countries, spanning across 5 continents, and he has received more than 230 visits from foreign heads of state paying state visits to China. Together with leaders from around the world, President Xi Jinping has carried out in-depth strategic communication, as well as work on furthering friendship with people around the world. He has expounded on the way to achieve peaceful development and win-win cooperation and promoted global solidarity, providing a strong force for peace, stability, and progress in a changing and turbulent world. President Xi Jinping and President Vladimir Putin of Russia took the high-speed railway and watched ice hockey game together. He celebrated the birthday of President Tokayev of Kazakhstan, and he signed the book Xi Jinping, The Governance of China, for Chilean President Boric, who took the book with him. All of these are wonderful tales in China's diplomacy. From state visit to home-ground diplomacy, from international multilateral summits to important meetings in China, President Xi Jinping has expounded on the vision of a community with a shared future for humanity on all these occasions, further enriching this important vision and pulling international consensus. As we speak, China and the world are standing at a new starting point in heading for a shared future. We should further study and implement Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy and take head of state diplomacy as a guide in working for a community with a shared future for humanity.
好，这边吧，第4排靠边上，北区这位女记者，对。
谢谢中评社记者提问。
China Review News Agency. Currently, international and regional hotspot issues are flaring up one after another, bringing impact to peace and stability across the world. How will China address peace and security issue with your vision of building a community with a shared future for humanity?
Over the past 8 decades after the war, the world has maintained overall peace. However, the world today is not tranquil. Regional hotspots and regional conflicts keep cropping up. Traditional and non-traditional security threats intertwine. It is fair to say that international security situation is becoming increasingly challenging and complex. President Xi Jinping, being mindful of the future, security, and well-being of all humanity, has solemnly proposed the Global Security Initiative, calling for commitment to the security vision featuring common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security, commitment to respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries, commitment to compliance with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, commitment to taking seriously the reasonable security concerns of all countries, commitment to peaceful means to address countries' differences and disputes through dialogue and consultation, commitment to coordinate efforts to ensure security in both traditional and non-traditional fields in order to address the root cause of international conflict, respond to global security challenges, and improve global security governance. This is China's proposal. Right now, the GSI has gained support from over 130 countries and international and regional organizations, and it has been clearly written into over 140 bilateral and multilateral documents. Since the founding of the new China, China has never provoked a single war. It has never taken an inch of land of other countries. China is the only country in the world that has written into its constitution the commitment to a path of peaceful development, is the only major nuclear state that pledges no first use of nuclear weapons. China has always been a staunch defender of the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. So far, it is the biggest contributor among P5 countries of peacekeeping personnel. And it is the second largest contributor to UN peacekeeping budget, thus making outstanding contribution to maintaining world peace. We are commemorating the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. This year marks the 80th anniversary, and the purpose is to remember history, honor the fallen heroes, cherish peace, and build a better future. We will defend the right view on the history of the Second War, pour strength and power for peace, and China stands ready to work with all parties to implement the GSI, to inject greater stability and certainty to the international community and work together for a world of lasting peace and universal security. Thank you.
好，这边吧，第2排南区最靠边上这位外国记者。对，是你。
Okay, thank you. My name is Natsanas. I came from Ethiopia and also the CIPCC program. I have one question. In a world facing challenges posed by unilateralism and protectionism and delays in attaining the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, what more can China do to promote global development. Thank you.
好，请翻译一下。
埃塞俄比亚广播公司，当前全球发展面临单边主义、保护主义等多重挑战。联合国2030年可持续发展议程落实进展缓慢。在当前形势下，中国在促进全球发展方面将如何发挥更大作用？
正如这位记者朋友所说
Just like what is mentioned by our friend, unilateralism and protectionism is on the rise, bringing impact to the recovery of the world economy. International cooperation lacks momentum. The implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is falling far behind. The cause of sustainable development humanity faces grave challenges. President Xi Jinping has pointed out that China's development needs openness to the world, and the world's prosperity needs contributions from China. China is constantly bringing new opportunities to the world with its own new development, promoting modernization across the globe with Chinese modernization. China is firmly committed to promoting high-standard opening up, building an open world economic system, protecting the stable and unimpeded operation of the global trade, as well as the the WTO-centered multilateral trading system, as well as the stable and unimpeded operation of the global industrial and supply chain. High-quality Belt and Road cooperation was further deepened and substantiated. 150 countries have joined the big family of Belt and Road cooperation. These efforts have made this path to greater happiness ever broader and more inclusiveness. China has announced 8 actions supporting global development. And we have also given zero tariff treatments to 100% tariff lines to all LDCs that have diplomatic relations with China. President Xi proposed the Global Development Initiative with the very aim to refocus the attention of the international community on development issues, reiterating our commitment to the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Over 100 countries and international organizations have supported and participated in the cooperation under this initiative. More than 80 countries have joined the group of friends of this initiative. The practical cooperation under the framework of this initiative has brought tangible benefits to people from many countries. As the world economic growth is sluggish and development divides keeps widening, we should revisit the original aspiration of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, revitalize global development partnership, and implement the Global Development Initiative so as to bring more benefit to the people around the world.
好，后面中区第4排，对，这位女记者，对。
谢谢。部长您好，我是光明日报的记者。
光明 Daily. In recent years, rhetoric such as clash of civilizations and superiority of certain civilizations are resurfacing, and the growth of human civilization faces more complex and volatile changes. What propositions does China have in terms of eliminating estrangement and promoting exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations? In 2023, President Xi Jinping put forward the Global Civilization Initiative, calling for joint efforts to advocate respect for the diversity of civilizations, the common values of humanity, the importance of inheritance and innovation of civilizations, and robust international people-to-people exchanges and cooperation, thus providing important guidance for promoting exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations, and for friendship and exchanges between people across the world. The Global Civilization Initiative has increasingly become a global consensus. It has been written numerous times into UN resolutions and various bilateral and multilateral documents. In 2024, the 78th session of the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution establishing June 10th every year as the International Day for Dialogue Among Civilizations. And on July 10th this year, a ministerial meeting on global civilizational dialogue was held in Beijing. President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the meeting, pointing the direction for dialogue and exchanges among different civilizations. In 2023, President Xi put forward the 5-year, 50,000-strong initiative, under which more than 30,000 young Americans have visited China. They have made friends with Chinese youngsters and come to see the real China. China has a unilateral visa-free or full mutual visa-free policy with 75 countries. And we offer visa-free transit to 55 countries, thus making China travel a sensation. Cultural products such as Black Myth, Wukong, Ne Zha 2, and La Bubu are an international hit, writing many vivid stories of exchanges and mutual learning between China and the rest of the world. Each and every civilization is rooted in its own cultural soil, and they embody the extraordinary wisdom and pursuit of a country and a nation. They all have their own value. Mankind have different skin colors and languages, but there is no superiority to civilizations. Human society has entered the 21st century. To clamor for or even create a clash between civilizations is to turn back the wheel of history. China is ready to work with countries around the world to advocate equality, mutual learning, dialogue, and mutual accommodation between civilizations, practice the Global Civilization Initiative, and make greater contributions to the progress of human civilizations. Thank you.
好，请继续提问。好，第二排中间这位女记者。对。
谢谢总台央视记者提问。我们也注意到呢，今年是联合国成立
CCTV News. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. Faced with growing numbers of global challenges, some people are saying that multilateral system represented by the United Nations has failed to play its due role. What is China's view on the role and status of the United Nations?
I believe we all remember that China is the first country to put its signature on the UN Charter. For 80 years since its founding, the United Nations has carried the keen aspirations of people across the world for peace and development. Till today, the United Nations remains the most universal, authoritative, and representative intergovernmental international organization. 80 years on, humanity has come a long way. However, to realize the beautiful vision described in the UN Charter remains an arduous journey. In particular, certain countries has been pursuing unilateralism. It has been walking away from a host of international organizations and treaties and has taken a selective approach to the UN as it sees fit. This has seriously impacted the international order and system. In recent years, a series of major crises and challenges warn us repeatedly that the role of the United Nations can only be strengthened, not diminished. And the status of the United Nations must be upheld and not replaced. Whether the United Nations can play its due role, the key lies in whether member states can uphold the purposes and principles of its charter, whether they can act in a way that is consistent with international law and basic norms governing international relations. At the same time, the United Nations needs to be strengthened through reform so as to better respond to global challenges, and in particular, to increase the representation and say of developing countries in international affairs. President Xi Jinping has proposed the major concept of building a community with a shared future for humanity, which is highly aligned with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. China has taken a lead in practicing true multilateralism. It has been firmly supporting the United Nations in playing a central role in international affairs. And under the UN framework, China has been working hard to pursue political settlement of hotspot issues, to reform the international economic and financial systems, and to safeguard the interest of developing countries and respond to climate change and other global challenges. And China has made great contribution in this regard. UN Secretary General Guterres has said on many occasions that China is a pillar for international cooperation and multilateralism. As the United Nations stands at the threshold of the next 80 years, China stands ready to work with all parties to strengthen the role of the United Nations and build a more equitable and reasonable international governance system. Thank you.
后面吧，南区倒数第二排这位记者，对。
谢谢。深圳卫视执新闻记者提问。
Shenzhen TV. This year marks the decade anniversary of the signing of the Paris Agreement. Global climate governance is now at a new crossroads. Though the U.S. have once again pulled out from the agreement, the international community widely believes that green and low-carbon development is still an irreversible trend, and different sides are still working together to meet the targets of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. And how will China continue to protect and lead the global climate governance process?
中国是世界绿色发展的坚定的
China is a staunch actor and an important contributor of the world green development. Guided by President Xi Jinping's thought on ecological civilization, China is making solid progress in meeting the twin goals of carbon peaking and neutrality. It has established a 1+N policy system and has built the biggest system of renewable energy with the fastest growth in the world. We have built the biggest and most complete industrial chain of new energy. China is also the fastest and largest contributor to global greening efforts, accounting for 1/4 of the increased areas of forestation in the world. In China today, 1/3 of the electricity comes from green source. China is actively carrying out international climate cooperation. Since 2016, China has provided and motivated over 177 billion RMB to support developing countries' efforts in climate response. Today, China's new energy enterprises have provided 80% of the PV components and 70% of the wind power equipment in the world, bringing down the cost for solar energy by over 80%. And over 60% for wind power. No matter how the international landscape may evolve, China will not slow down its action in climate response, will not weaken its effort in promoting international cooperation. and it will not stop in building a community with a shared future for humanity. We will abide by the UNFCCC and its Paris Agreement, focus our effort on green and low-carbon development, and jointly respond to climate crisis through multilateral cooperation. We will deepen international cooperation and ensure the free flow of green technology and products through multilateral governance, so as to make sure quality products are available at affordable prices for countries around the globe, particularly those from the developing world. In the meantime, we firmly believe that developed countries have the obligation to provide assistance and support to developing countries and make their due contribution to the green and low-carbon transition of the world. More questions, please.
第一排。
China News Agency. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the restoration of Taiwan. At present, the international paradigm of upholding the One China principle is steadily consolidated. Meanwhile, some countries are still seeking to obscure and hollow out the principle. How will China's diplomacy in the new era firmly deter the interference in the Taiwan question by external forces in order to defend China's sovereignty and territorial integrity? As you mentioned, this year marks the 80th anniversary of Taiwan's restoration. Taiwan's return to China is a fruit of the victory in World War II and an important component of the post-war international order. The Cairo Declaration, the Potsdam Proclamation, among other instruments with legal effect under international law, all affirmed China's sovereignty over Taiwan. The historical and legal fact that Taiwan belongs to China brooks no challenge. The One China principle is the universal consensus of the international community and a basic norm of international relations. It is the political foundation and premise for China to establish and develop diplomatic relations with countries around the world. To date, 183 countries have established diplomatic relations with China on the basis of the One China principle. In 1971, the 26th session of the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 2758 with an overwhelming majority, which decided to restore all the lawful rights of the People's Republic of China in the United Nations and to expel forthwith the representatives of the Taiwan authorities from the UN and all its institutions. This resolution resolved once and for all the issue of the representation of the whole of China, including Taiwan, in the UN. It completely blocked any possibility to create two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan. UN General Assembly Resolution 2758's authority brooks no challenge. The Taiwan question is at the core of China's core interests. Resolving the Taiwan question and achieving the complete reunification of the motherland is the common aspiration of all the sons and daughters of the Chinese nation. Upholding national sovereignty, security, and development interests is the sacred mission of China's diplomacy. Today, the international paradigm of upholding the One China principle is further cemented. The Chinese people's just cause of opposing Taiwan independence separatist activities and striving for national reunification has achieved the widespread understanding and support of the international community. I would like to reiterate that the Taiwan question is purely China's internal affair. It brooks no external interference. The handful of external forces seeking to exploit the Taiwan question to contain China are playing with fire, and those who play with fire will perish by it. The overwhelming trend of China's ultimate and inevitable reunification is unstoppable. Thank you.
好，中区第3排这位记者。
谢谢主持人。香港紫金杂志记者提问。
Ziqing Magazine, solidarity and collaboration of major countries, has played an important role in the victory against the war of fascists, as well as in building post-war international order and in maintaining world peace and stability. What is China's view on its relations with Russia, United States, and Europe? And what is China's position in terms of further developing relations with major countries?
President Xi Jinping pointed out that major country relations bear on global strategic stability, and major countries shoulder special responsibilities. China actively pursues an architecture of major country relations featuring peaceful coexistence, overall stability, and balanced development. China-Russia relationship in today's turbulent and changing world is unparalleled in terms of stability, maturity, and strategic significance. 80 years ago, the people of both countries made huge sacrifice and made important historic contribution to the establishment of post-war international order. The two sides will carry forward the right view on the history of the Second World War, defend the victorious outcomes of the Second World War, and advance the comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination in the new era, and make even greater contribution to the progress of humanity. Since the beginning of this year, President Xi Jinping and President Trump of the United States had 2 phone calls, and they have exchanged many letters. And together they have set the course and direction for the giant ship of China-US relations. President Xi Jinping pointed out that China and the United States share extensive common interests and broad space for cooperation. The two countries can be partners and friends and work together to do more things, big things, concrete things, and good things, beneficial for both countries and the world at large. We are committed to pursuing mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation with the United States, and at the same time, we will firmly defend China's sovereignty, security, and development interests. Pressure or coercion on China is not the right approach and won't work. Efforts to hold back China's development. We are ready to work with the United States toward the same direction, implement the important common understandings of the two presidents, maintain communication, manage and control differences, expand cooperation, and continue to explore the right way for the two major countries to get along in the new era. This year is the 50th anniversary of China-EU relations. When meeting EU leaders, President Xi Jinping summarized the important experience and inspirations of China-EU relations over the past 50 years. They are mutual respect, seeking common ground while putting aside differences, openness and cooperation, and mutual benefit. China is ready to deepen strategic communication with the EU, increase understanding and mutual trust, and strengthen partnership, which is the defining feature of the relationship, open wider to each other, properly handle differences and frictions, and to move forward the China-EU relationship. Thank you. 好，这边第2排北区。
这位外国记者。
I represent Associated Press of Pakistan. The Central Conference on Work related to neighboring countries was held in Beijing this April. President Xi Jinping called for building community with a shared future with neighboring countries and opening new ground to the work related to neighboring countries. Can you update us on the progress on that front? Thank you.
好，请翻译一下。
巴基斯坦通讯社，今年4月，中央周边工作会议在北京举行。习近平主席强调，要聚焦构建周边命运共同体，努力开创周边工作新局面。您能否介绍一下构建周边命运共同体的进展情况？
中国始终将周边置于外交全局的首要位置。
China has always prioritized the neighborhood on its diplomatic agenda and is always committed to promoting regional peace and stability, development and prosperity.
正如您所说，今年4月
Just like you have wisely put it, this April, the Central Conference on Work related to neighboring countries was successfully held,
周边工作的
during which we have made clear the overarching vision and the objectives and tasks for the work related to neighboring countries going forward. We have put the stress on the need to promote the building of a community with a shared future and build a better future with neighboring countries.
当前周边命运共同体建设
And as we speak,
不断取得新的进
steady
展，
progress was being
迈
made,
上新的台阶。
and the work related to building a community with a shared future with neighboring countries has reached a new level.
周边国家
President Xi Jinping has traveled to almost all neighboring countries.
19大、20大后，习主席
After the
首次
80th,
出访
90th, and 20th CPC National Congresses, the destination of President Xi Jinping's first visit are all neighboring countries, ushering China's relations with its neighbors
近代以来
into
最好时期。
the best era since modern times.
我国同周边多国宣布
Many neighboring countries
携手共
have
建
announced with China the building of communities with shared future at the bilateral level,
中国东
and we are making efforts to build an even closer China-ASEAN community with a shared future.
中亚国家
China has achieved full coverage on building a community with a shared future with all countries on the Indo-China Peninsula and the Central Asian countries at both bilateral and multilateral levels.
签署共建
China has signed Belt and Road cooperation documents with 25 neighboring
18
countries.
个国家的最大。
China is the biggest trading partner with 18
中国同东盟
countries in the
连
neighborhood.
续5年
China and ASEAN
第一大
are
贸易
each
伙伴
other's largest trading partner for
中国
5
东盟
years
自贸区
consecutively.
3.0版
The negotiation of the
全面完成。
China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0 has been fully concluded, and the RCEP is being implemented
经
to
济
a
合
high
作产业
standard.
园
Economic cooperation industrial parks,
智慧
cross-border
农业网络
e-commerce hubs,
落后
and
中边
smart agriculture networks are established in the neighborhood, bringing huge amount of jobs
同中国
for
合
local
作
communities.
既受尊重，
It has been
又得实惠
It。has become a wide consensus among China's neighbors
周边国家的
that
共识。
cooperate with China brings both respect and real benefit.
中国倡导
China calls for a model of security for Asia featuring sharing well and war, seeking common ground while shelving differences, and dialogue and consultation.
朝鲜半岛、阿富汗等
And
地
we
区
have
6年
actively contributed China's wisdom and strength in facilitating the political settlement of regional hostile issues like the Korean Peninsula and Afghanistan. China advocates the Asian value featuring peace, cooperation, openness, inclusiveness. It has taken actions to facilitate people-to-people exchanges. We have rolled out Lanchang-Mekong visas and ASEAN visas successively.
文化
We've launched a mutual visa exemption arrangement with countries in Southeast Asia and promoted the exchanges in such areas as culture, tourism, youth, as well as subnational and media and think tanks interactions.
睦邻
China
安邻
will actively practice the vision of fostering an amicable, secure, and prosperous neighborhood and the principle of
携手周边国家
amity, sincerity, mutual benefits, and inclusiveness, as well as the vision of building a shared community with a shared future, and write new chapters into the building community with a shared future with its neighboring countries. More questions, please.
南区，对。
早上好，Brasil de fato 真是巴西。So how does China view the role of the global South in building a community with a shared future for humanity? And also, what will China do to support the development of the global South countries, and also to support a bigger role for these countries in international organizations? Thank you very much. 谢谢。
请翻译一下。
真实巴西媒体集团，中方如何看待全球南方在构建人类命运共同体中的作用？中国将如何致力于促进全球南方国家的发展，以及在相关国际组织中发挥更大作用？
习近平主席指出，中国
President Xi Jinping has pointed out that China will always be a member of the global South and a developing country. In recent years, the global South has been rising in momentum, and its economic aggregate accounts for over 40% of the world total. Their contribution to world economic growth has reached 80%. The global South have become a key force for world peace, common development, and the improvement of global governance. The global South is always on China's mind. China's roots are in the global South, and China seeks solidarity with fellow members of the global South. Over the past 10+ years, China has issued action plans and joint statements with several dozen countries in the global South on building a community with a shared future. The building of a community with a shared future now covers all the contiguously clustered areas for global South countries. China has also continued to deepen solidarity and collaboration with global South countries at the United Nations, G20, and other multilateral platforms. China takes an active part in BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and other platforms in order to uphold the common interests of the global South. With Chinese support, the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway has realized the dream of the Indonesian people to have a railway, and China's hybrid rice has enriched the grain supply of African people. China's satellite cooperation with Latin America has set an example of South-South cooperation in the high-tech field. We will stay committed to the right approach to friendship and interests and the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith, as we continue to deepen strategic mutual trust and practical cooperation with global South countries and support them in exploring development paths suited to their national conditions. We will be fellow companions and good partners in building a community with a shared future for humanity. Thank you.
时间关系，我们最后一个问题。
Last question, please.
这边吧，第3排这位记者，对，举半天了。
谢谢主持人。环球时报环球网记者提问。
Thank you. On Global Times,
平安撤回1万多名同胞。
last year, China safely evacuated over 10,000 Chinese compatriots from foreign lands. This year, after the conflict between Iran and Israel broke out, China has immediately taken a series of consular protection measures, ensured the safety of Chinese nationals and institutions overseas, and swiftly organized evacuation missions. As more and more Chinese citizens go abroad, how will the MFA better safeguard their legitimate rights and interests overseas?
海外同胞的平安
The safety of Chinese compatriots on foreign lands is always the top priority of the motherland. Serving the people is always the founding aspiration and mission that we keep close at heart. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will resolutely implement the instructions of General Secretary Xi Jinping and the decisions of the Party Central Committee, coordinate efforts from different sides, and continue to build a 5-in-1 consular protection system that involves the central government, local authorities, overseas diplomatic missions, and companies as well as citizens. We will maintain equal emphasis on prevention and response and spare no effort to safeguard the lives and property of Chinese citizens. Since this year, we have safely evacuated thousands of Chinese compatriots from war-torn areas, properly handled tens of thousands of consular protection cases. We have responded to roughly 300,000 calls requesting for assistance and issued over 2,000 warnings. Many Chinese compatriots have expressed that in times of emergency, the motherland is always there. And though the journey home stretches thousands of miles, the motherland will come to bring them home. With growing people-to-people exchanges between China and the rest of the world and expansion of China's overseas interest, the responsibility of serving the people on our shoulder is growing heavier than ever. We will focus on the needs of the people and keep pushing in this regard, and to build a system for the protection of Chinese nationals overseas. We will fully leverage the strength of our system, further improve system and mechanism for overseas protection, and improve the security architecture that is well coordinated, pragmatic, and highly efficient. We will sharpen our awareness to overseas security risks, improve the 4-tier risk alert system, and issue security warnings timely, and make sure that the alert system could be more effective in this regard. We will strengthen our capacity building in handling foreign-related emergent security cases to make sure that our consular protection can accompany our citizens whenever they go. And whenever our compatriots call, we answer every single time. We will continue to build a professional team for consular protection and guard the safety of our compatriots and institutions overseas with heart, with care, and with unwavering resolve. Our mission to serve the people is as unshakable as a bedrock. We are always in action to serve the people. China's diplomacy will always put the people front and center, and will always be the one that can count on for Chinese people and the guardian of Chinese nationals and interests overseas. No matter where Chinese citizens are, the motherland is always behind them. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoxu. Thank you for your participation. That concludes today's press conference. Goodbye.